My name is Eleanor Sprague. I'm 31 years old, and for 3 years I loved a man named Damian Cross, hard enough to excuse things that should have terrified me long before they finally broke me. Friday night was supposed to be simple. That's the part that still haunted me afterward. It wasn't an anniversary. It wasn't a proposal. It wasn't some dramatic turning point I could have predicted. It was just dinner. One reservation. One normal evening between two people who were supposed to be planning a wedding in 4 months. The restaurant was called Leora, tiny place downtown with impossible reservations and a waiting list people bragged about online like it was some private club. Damian had talked about it for months. Every time we passed it, he'd slow down to stare through the windows. Every time someone posted food from there, he'd send it to me immediately. "One day," he kept saying, "you're taking me there one day." So I made reservations 6 weeks early. Friday, 5:47 p.m. I was standing in our bedroom, wearing a black dress Damian once said made me look dangerously pretty, fastening my earrings while steam from the shower still fogged the mirror. My phone buzzed on the dresser. "Damian, something came up. Can't make dinner tonight, sorry." That was it. No explanation. No, "I feel awful." No, "Can we reschedule?" Just 7 words that somehow made the whole apartment feel cold. I texted back immediately. "Everything okay?" No response. Then, "What happened?" Still nothing. I called him. Straight to voicemail. At first, I told myself not to overreact. Maybe his battery died. Maybe there really was an emergency. But there was something strange about the message. It felt detached, too clean, like it had been written quickly by someone already halfway out the door emotionally. By 7 p.m., I was still fully dressed, sitting alone at the edge of the bed, staring at the reservation confirmation email, while the room slowly darkened around me. I finally called the restaurant and canceled. The hostess sounded annoyed. I almost laughed, because I wanted to tell her she wasn't even in the top 10 most disappointed people tonight. By midnight, disappointment had turned into fear. Damian still wasn't answering. I called his mother. No answer. I texted his best friend, Nolan. "Have you heard from Damian?" Nolan replied 20 minutes later. "No. Maybe he just needed space." Needed space. I read that text 3 times, because who disappears completely without warning when they need space? Adults don't vanish, they communicate. Saturday morning came with no messages. Then Saturday afternoon. Then Saturday night. I called hospitals. I checked local accident reports. I even called the non-emergency police line and sat there listening to a calm woman explain that Damian was an adult and there wasn't enough evidence to file anything serious yet. But then something happened that changed everything. Saturday evening, Damian changed his profile picture. I stared at my phone so hard, my eyes hurt. New photo, fresh haircut, smiling. So his phone worked perfectly fine when he wanted it to. He had enough battery to update social media, but not enough humanity to tell his fiancé he was alive. That was the exact moment my fear began turning into anger. Cold anger, the dangerous kind. By Sunday evening, I stopped crying. I packed 2 suitcases instead. His clothes, his watches, his expensive sneakers lined carefully near the zipper, like I was organizing evidence instead of ending a relationship. The hardest thing to pack was the gray hoodie I used to steal from him whenever I missed him. It still smelled like his cologne. For 1 weak second, I almost sat on the floor and begged the universe to make this all a misunderstanding. But misunderstandings don't usually update their profile pictures. Monday evening, 6:15 p.m. I heard keys at the door. Damian walked inside carrying iced coffee, like he'd just come home from running errands. "Hey, babe," he said casually. "Miss me?" I was sitting on the couch. I'd been there almost 3 hours, replaying every possible version of this conversation in my head. "Welcome back," I said calmly. He tossed his keys into the bowl near the kitchen. "Sorry about dinner Friday. Something came up last minute. Family emergency kind of thing. My phone died and I forgot my charger. Whole weekend was insane." Not even guilt. Not even shame. Just excuses delivered lazily, like he expected me to nod and move on. I stood up without saying anything, walked into the bedroom, then returned, dragging both suitcases behind me. His face changed instantly. "What's that?" "Your stuff." "Eleanor?" "I packed for you." He stared at the suitcases like they were somehow unreasonable. Then he laughed softly. Actually laughed. "Come on, you're seriously doing this over one missed dinner?" I held out my hand. "The ring." That wiped the smile off his face immediately. "You're not serious." "I am. Ring. Now." "Jesus Christ, Eleanor." He rubbed his forehead dramatically. "I told you there was a family emergency. And I told you you vanished for 72 hours while I thought you might be dead. My phone died." I tilted my head slightly. "Interesting. Dead phones usually can't update Instagram profile pictures." Silence. A tiny flicker crossed his face. Panic. Fast, but there. Then he recovered. "I borrowed someone's phone for a second." "To upload a selfie?" I was distracted, but not too distracted to pose for a new picture. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "No," I said quietly. "I think I'm finally reacting appropriately." He exhaled sharply. "You're acting controlling." There it was. The word people use when accountability starts cornering them. "Controlling would be demanding access to your phone," I said. "I'm not demanding anything. I'm ending this." "You're throwing away 3 years because I needed space for a weekend?" "No. I'm ending this because the man I planned to marry disappeared without explanation and somehow expected me to accept it afterward." "You're unbelievable." "And you're careless." His jaw tightened hard enough for me to see the muscle twitch. "You know what?" he snapped. "Fine." He yanked the engagement ring off his finger and threw it toward me. The ring hit my shoulder, bounced off the couch, and disappeared under the coffee table. "You'll regret this," he said coldly as he grabbed the suitcases. "When you calm down and realize how insane you're being, don't come begging me to come back." I looked him directly in the eyes. "I won't." He slammed the door so hard, the framed engagement photo near the hallway rattled against the wall. The apartment fell silent again. I crouched down slowly, reached under the coffee table, and picked up the ring. For a long moment, I just stared at it, resting in my palm. 3 years together, reduced to a small piece of gold that suddenly felt embarrassingly cheap. And deep down, underneath all the anger and humiliation, something colder whispered that this story wasn't over yet. Because people who disappear for 3 days usually aren't alone. The text started 6 hours after Damien left. "Can we please talk like adults?" Then another. "You overreacted." Then another. "I miss you already. This is stupid." I ignored every single one. By Tuesday afternoon, his mother called. I stared at her name glowing on my screen before answering, because Lorraine Cross only contacted me when Damien created problems he couldn't fix himself. "Eleanor," she said immediately, voice sharp with irritation instead of concern. "You need to apologize to my son." I almost laughed. "Excuse me?" He's devastated. He said you threw him out over one misunderstanding. "One misunderstanding?" I repeated calmly. Your son disappeared for 3 days without communicating. Well, I thought something terrible happened to him. He had a family emergency. Which family member? A pause. Long enough to matter. That's private. Interesting, I said softly. Because if someone in my family was dying, I'd probably remember their name immediately. Her tone hardened. You're being petty. No. Damien changing his profile picture while ignoring my calls was petty. He borrowed someone's phone and somehow chose social media over contacting his fiancé. He was stressed. He looked relaxed enough in the photo. Silence again. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, suddenly realizing the entire family operated the same way Damien did. Deflect, minimize, rewrite reality until the other person feels cruel for noticing the truth. I'm not discussing this anymore, I said. We're done. You're throwing away a good man. No, I replied quietly. I think I've finally stopped rescuing a bad one. Then I hung up. Wednesday evening, Nolan showed up at my apartment carrying the expression of someone assigned emotional cleanup duty. Eleanor, come on, he sighed as soon as I opened the door. You're being harsh. I folded my arms. What exactly am I being harsh about? The disappearing? The lying? Or the pretending I was crazy for being upset? He was going through something. Then he could have used his functioning thumbs to communicate. Nolan rubbed his face. He needed time. Then he says, I need time. Adults use words, Nolan. You're ending an engagement over 1 weekend. I stared at him for a long moment. No, I said finally. I'm ending an engagement because the man I was going to marry showed me exactly how little respect he has for me. His expression shifted slightly, irritation mixing with discomfort. You know Damien loves you. People who love you don't vanish while you're calling hospitals. That shut him up for about 3 seconds. Then he muttered, You always make everything sound worse than it is. I opened the door wider and stepped aside. You should leave. He looked annoyed that I wasn't crying harder. You're ruining your own future over pride. No, I said softly. I think I'm saving it. He left, muttering under his breath. Thursday night, everything finally snapped into place. My cousin Harper called me while I was eating takeout on the couch. Eleanor, she said carefully, I think I found Damien. Every muscle in my body tightened. Harper explained that her boyfriend's sister had posted photos from a family barbecue over the weekend. Normal suburban backyard setup, folding chairs, string lights, beer coolers. And Damien was there. Not injured. Not grieving. Not trapped in some family emergency. Laughing. I opened the screenshots Harper sent. The first photo barely showed him, in the background near a grill. The second made my stomach drop. Damien standing beside a blonde woman with his hand low against her waist. Vanessa Reed, his ex-girlfriend from college. The woman he always described as ancient history. I zoomed in so hard, the image blurred. Her body leaned naturally against his. Comfortable. Familiar. Then came the third screenshot. Someone tagged Damien in a group photo captioned, So happy these two found their way back to each other. My chest went cold. I called Harper immediately. What the hell is this? That's not even the worst part, she said carefully. Apparently, people at the reunion thought they were together. I stopped breathing for a second. What do you mean together? Like, Damien introduced Vanessa as his girlfriend. The room actually tilted. All weekend, while I was calling police stations and hospitals. While his mother defended him. while Nolan lectured me about compassion. He was at his ex-girlfriend's family reunion, pretending they were still a couple. I sat there in silence so long, Harper finally whispered, "Eleanor?" "I'm here." "You okay?" "Number." But strangely, I also was. Because confusion disappeared instantly once the truth arrived. Suddenly, every missing piece fit perfectly. The vague text, the silence, the defensiveness, the fake emergency. He hadn't disappeared because something happened to him. He disappeared because he didn't want me interrupting whatever fantasy he was playing out with Vanessa. And somehow, that hurt less than the uncertainty had. At least lies are solid. You can stand on them long enough to walk away. I created a group chat immediately. Damien. His mother. Nolan. His sister, Camille. Then I sent every screenshot, along with one message. Interesting family emergency. The responses exploded almost instantly. Who sent you these? Not, I can explain. Not, it's not what it looks like. Just panic about getting caught. His mother. This is an invasion of privacy. Camille. Oh my God. Nolan. Damien, what the hell? I typed one final response. Funny how none of you are denying it. Then I muted the chat and went to bed. Friday morning at 8:12 a.m., someone started pounding on my apartment door. I already knew who it was. Damien. I opened the door, but stayed firmly in the doorway. He looked terrible. Wrinkled hoodie, bloodshot eyes, angry in the way guilty people usually are. Eleanor, we need to talk. Talk. These photos are out of context. I crossed my arms slowly. Okay. Give me the context where pretending to date your ex-girlfriend while engaged to me makes sense. It wasn't like that. Then why did people think you were together? He hesitated too long. That family reunion was for Vanessa's grandmother, he said finally. She's sick. Really sick. Vanessa didn't want to upset her. I blinked once. So your solution was pretending to still be her boyfriend? She loved me when we dated. It was complicated. No, I said quietly. Complicated as taxes. This is disrespect. You wouldn't have understood. You never gave me the chance. She was emotional. And I was your fiancé. He ran a hand through his hair aggressively. You always twist things. I almost smiled at that, because the truth didn't need twisting anymore. You vanished for 3 days, I said evenly. Ignored every call. Let me believe something horrible happened to you. Meanwhile, you spent the weekend playing happy couple with Vanessa. We weren't hooking up. The fact that he answered that, instead of denying the emotional betrayal, told me everything. You know the saddest part? I asked softly. He frowned. If you had just told me the truth Friday night, if you'd said, Vanessa's grandmother is sick and I want to say goodbye properly, I might have understood. His expression cracked slightly. But instead, I continued, you lied, because somewhere deep down, you already knew what you were doing was wrong. Eleanor. No, we're done here. His voice suddenly turned desperate. Please don't throw us away over one mistake. One mistake? I repeated quietly. No, Damien. This was a series of choices. I stepped back slowly toward the doorway. You chose her all weekend. Then I closed the door in his face. The fallout hit Damien faster than either of us expected. By Monday, his social media story about his controlling ex-fiancé had already started collapsing. Someone from Vanessa's family commented publicly under one of his posts. Wait, weren't you two back together last weekend? He deleted the comment within minutes. Too late. Screenshots spread fast. Then came another surprise. Vanessa apparently didn't know Damien and I were still engaged during the reunion. One of her friends messaged me privately with a single sentence. He told everyone you two had already broken up. Another lie. At that point, I stopped feeling heartbroken. Mostly, I just felt embarrassed for the version of myself that kept defending him for 3 years. A week later, I met Damien one final time so he could sign himself off the apartment lease. He looked exhausted, thinner somehow, like reality had finally started catching up to him. "Eleanor," he said quietly while signing the papers, "I really did love you." I looked down at the lease between us. "I think you loved having me," I replied. "That's different." He flinched hard at that. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered sitting alone in that black dress, calling hospitals while he laughed beside another woman. That feeling disappeared immediately. I returned the engagement ring the next morning, got back 70% of what I paid for it, used part of the money to buy a new couch because I couldn't stand staring at the old one anymore. Fresh apartment. Fresh silence. Fresh start. A few days later, Damien's sister Camille ran into me at a grocery store. She looked uncomfortable before finally sighing. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I think you did the right thing." I raised an eyebrow. She gave a sad little shrug. "You were always cleaning up his messes, paying when he was broke, covering for him when he disappeared, making excuses for him with everyone." That one stayed with me. Because she was right. I thought I was being supportive. But I had really been teaching Damien that no matter what he did, I would smooth it over afterward. Not anymore. The last time I heard from him was 3 weeks later. Drunk voicemail, slurred apologies, crying, saying he missed me, saying Vanessa meant nothing, saying he ruined his life. I deleted it before it even finished playing. Because by then, something inside me had finally settled. The apartment was quiet again. No lies, no disappearing acts, no anxiety every time my phone buzzed. Just peace. Damien wanted space. Now he has all the space in the world.